I used to believe that being a good person was the key to success. I really did. I thought if I was kind, helpful, and put the team's needs before my own, I'd be rewarded. I was working under the assumption that the world was a meritocracy, that my good deeds and my willingness to sacrifice would eventually get noticed. I was the one who always stayed late to help a struggling colleague. I was the one who took on the garbage tasks nobody else wanted, thinking it showed I was a team player. I was the one who never rocked the boat, who took the blame just to keep the peace, and who celebrated other people's victories louder than my own. And what did I get for all that effort? I was consistently, systematically, and painfully overlooked. My kindness wasn't seen as strength. It was seen as a utility. My willingness to help wasn't generosity. It was just availability. My quiet competence was completely drowned out by the hollow confidence of others. I watched people who were less qualified, less dedicated, and frankly less good get promoted right past me. They took credit for my ideas, dumped their failures on my desk, and built their little kingdoms on the foundation of my hard work. I wasn't just finishing last, I was being lapped by the very people I had stopped to help. I slowly and agonizingly realized the world wasn't the place I thought it was. It's not a library where the quiet and studious are admired. It's an arena, and I'd been walking into it every single day armed with a peace treaty while everyone else was carrying a sword. I was tired of being the reliable, dependable, invisible guy. I was tired of being nice, because being nice was getting me absolutely nowhere. That all changed when I found 3 controversial principles in a 500-year-old book. This wasn't some self-help guide full of empty affirmations. It was a cold, pragmatic, and brutally honest manual on power, written by a diplomat named Machiavelli. The book was The Prince, and it didn't teach me how to be a better person. It taught me how to be a more effective one. The first and most important law I learned was this: it is safer to be feared than to be loved. Now, this isn't a story about becoming a villain. It's a story about survival. This is how embracing that single terrifying idea and 2 others finally got me the power and success I'd always deserved. This is the story of how I stopped being the nice guy who finished last and started becoming the person who could finally win. Section 1. The first law: it is safer to be feared than loved. Machiavelli's most famous and most chilling piece of advice is about the economy of human emotion. He wrote that because it's hard to be both feared and loved, it is much safer to be feared than loved. Love, he argues, is fickle. It's held together by a bond of obligation that people will break the second it's inconvenient for them. Fear, on the other hand, is reinforced by the dread of punishment, a feeling that never really goes away. When we hear fear, we immediately think of tyranny and cruelty. But that's a clumsy interpretation. In the modern corporate arena, fear isn't about threats. It's about earning respect through consequence. It's about being seen as someone whose decisions matter, whose time is valuable, and whose displeasure is something to be avoided, not because you're a monster, but because you're effective. In the Machiavellian sense, feared simply means you're taken seriously. For years, I was desperate to be loved at work. That meant being the popular colleague, the approachable boss, the one everyone wanted to grab coffee with. I was that person, my reward, a team that felt comfortable but not accountable. My projects were a mess of missed deadlines and casual attitudes. My friendliness had been mistaken for a lack of standards. People liked me, but they didn't respect my authority. They saw a friend, not a leader, and treated my instructions like friendly suggestions. My breaking point was a project codenamed Odyssey. This was my big shot to prove myself to management. I used my usual people-pleasing playbook: team lunches, an open-door policy, telling everyone we were equal partners. I wanted them to love working for me. The result? A complete catastrophe. Deadlines were treated like soft suggestions. A key designer, someone I thought was a friend, was constantly late, always armed with a charming apology that I, wanting to be liked, always accepted. My attempts to enforce discipline were met with surprise, like, "Don't worry, we'll get it done." They weren't being malicious. They just didn't fear any consequences from me, because there were none. 2 weeks before the final presentation, I realized we were headed straight for a cliff. I called an emergency meeting and tried to be firm, but my voice wavered. I expressed my disappointment. They just gave me more reassurances. They still didn't get it. They saw my stress as my problem, not theirs. And they were right. The project failed spectacularly. I was the one who had to explain the mess to the board. My team members were reassigned, their careers untouched. I was put on notice. While licking my wounds, I came across the prince. That line, "Men have less scruple in offending one who they love than one who they fear," felt like a splash of ice water to the face. My whole career was in that one sentence. By chasing love, I'd made it easy for people to disrespect me. It was time for a change. 6 months later, I got one last chance, a smaller project called Scimitar. This time I didn't walk in trying to make friends. I walked in with a plan. Day 1, the tone was different. The kickoff wasn't a casual hangout. It was a clinical breakdown of the project charter. I laid out the goals, the timeline, and then I introduced what I called the accountability framework. It was a simple document that stated, in no uncertain terms, the consequences for missing a deadline. A first miss triggered a formal review. A second meant a one-on-one to create a performance improvement plan. A third, and you were off the project with a report sent to your manager. I presented it without anger, just calm finality. I wasn't asking for opinions. I was informing them of the new reality. The room was silent. They were looking for the old me. They didn't find him. That same designer from my last project was on this team. In week 2, he missed a small deadline by a day. He came over with that signature smile and a casual apology. The old me would have waved it off. The new me stopped, looked at him and said, "Thanks for the update. As per the accountability framework, this triggers a formal review. I need a root cause analysis for the delay by end of day, and we'll discuss it tomorrow at 9 a.m. His smile evaporated. He was stunned. He tried to argue. "It's just one day." I held up a hand. "The framework is the standard. It's not personal, it's the process. See you at 9. Word of that spread like wildfire. It was the moment they realized I wasn't seeking their affection anymore. I was demanding their performance. The fear wasn't of me being a bully. It was the professional fear of predictable, unavoidable consequences. It was respect. The team dynamic transformed overnight. Work came in on time, often early. Meetings were ruthlessly efficient. I was no longer their therapist or their friend. I was their commander. But here's the crucial part Machiavelli also got. You have to avoid being hated. Hatred leads to rebellion. My rules were strict, but they were transparent and applied to everyone. I wasn't cruel. When the team did well, I was generous with praise, often in emails where I copied their bosses. My praise, now scarce, became valuable. Project Scimitar was delivered a week ahead of schedule and under budget. A huge success. In the final debrief with the board, I gave specific credit to every single team member. They were shocked. They had feared my judgment for weeks, and now I was lifting them up in front of the most powerful people in the company. I was no longer the nice guy. I was something far more effective. I was respected. I was taken seriously. I was, in the cold, clear Machiavellian sense, feared. And it saved my career. Section 2. The second law. Appear decisive and inflexible, but adapt strategically. In the face of chaos, people don't follow the most nuanced person. They follow the most certain person. A leader who seems hesitant or publicly doubts themselves just creates anxiety. But a leader who projects unshakable decisiveness becomes a psychological anchor. They create the illusion of control, and in the game of power, perception is reality. Machiavelli knew this. He advised a prince to build a reputation for strength and to make his judgments seem irreversible. This outward mask of resolve commands respect. But behind the scenes, the prince has to be relentlessly adaptable. He has to be willing to change course or abandon a failing plan, all while keeping up the performance of unbending will. It's an iron mask over a fluid mind. I used to think leadership was all about collaboration. I'd hold long brainstorming sessions, showing my uncertainties because I thought it was transparent. I wanted to build consensus so everyone felt ownership. What I actually projected was indecision. My team didn't feel empowered. They felt adrift. They saw a leader who was asking them for the map. People don't follow someone who's asking for directions. They follow the one who's confidently pointing the way, even if he's privately checking a compass. This lesson was hammered home during a corporate restructuring. A new competitor was eating our lunch and panic was setting in. I was on a task force to figure out a new strategy. The meetings were a nightmare of paralysis. The leader, a senior VP, would start every meeting with, "Okay, team, what should we do?" We debated in circles for weeks. He was so afraid of offending someone that he refused to make a call. We were sinking, and our leader was taking a poll on the best way to patch the hole. Hearing Machiavelli's words in my head, I knew the situation didn't need more discussion. It needed a decision. I spent 3 days working in secret. I took the best data, boiled down all the arguments into 2 paths, and I picked one. Then I built an unassailable case for it, not as an option, but as the only option. My presentation wasn't, "Here's one possible idea." It was, "Here is the plan." At the next meeting, as the debate started up again, I cut in. "With all due respect," I said, my voice calm but firm, "the time for debate is over. I have a provisional plan." I didn't ask for permission. I walked to the front of the room and presented my spearhead strategy as an inevitability. I used powerful declarative language. "We will consolidate these products. We will focus our marketing here. This is how we win." When I finished, the room was silent. I had given them what they desperately craved: certainty. Before anyone could pick it apart, another manager said, "This is the first thing I've heard that actually sounds like a plan. I'm in." One by one, the others agreed. They weren't just buying the strategy, they were buying the confidence behind it. The SVP, seeing the room shift, quickly co-opted it. "Excellent work. This is the direction we'll take." I had just handed him his authority back, and he grabbed it. Now for the secret part of the law. Outwardly, the spearhead strategy was set in stone. But privately, I knew it was just a starting point. This is where strategic adaptation comes in. I held small private meetings with the real experts. I didn't ask, "Will this plan work?" That would show doubt. I asked, "What obstacles will we hit when we execute this? And how can we optimize this process?" The framing was everything. It presumed the plan was a go, and we were just refining it. This allowed them to give critical feedback without challenging my authority. Based on their input, I quietly made tons of adjustments. To the rest of the company, the plan looked like it was rolling out perfectly. It was a symbol of stability, but behind the curtain, I was being as fluid as water, bending around rocks to find the path forward. The strategy worked. The division's numbers climbed. I was hailed as a visionary. I had learned that leadership isn't about having all the right answers. It's about having the confidence to project one right answer and the wisdom to change it in secret. You have to be a rock on the surface and water underneath. Section 3. The third law: control perception and use ambiguity. In the theater of power, you aren't who you are. You're who people perceive you to be. Your reputation is more powerful than your reality. People act on what they believe, not what's true. Machiavelli said men judge more by the eye than by the hand, meaning everyone sees who you appear to be. But few know who you really are. Masters of power control what others see, and just as importantly, what they don't see. And one of the best tools for this is ambiguity. If you're perfectly understood, you're predictable. If you're predictable, you're vulnerable. But if you're a puzzle others can't quite solve, you command their attention. They can't attack what they can't define. My instinct was always to be an open book. I shared my thoughts, my ambitions, my weaknesses. This was a catastrophic mistake. My openness didn't build trust. It gave away all my leverage. My rivals knew my playbook because I handed it to them. This lesson came to a head with a colleague I'll call Marcus. He was my polar opposite and a master of self-promotion. His actual work was minimal, but his perceived contribution was immense. He was a creature of pure perception, and we were both up for the same director-level promotion. I tried to compete by working harder, by being the substance to his style. I thought the truth would win out. It didn't. In the company story, he was the rising star, and I was just the reliable workhorse. And they don't make workhorses directors. I was losing. Then I remembered Machiavelli's advice: appear to be one thing while being prepared to act as another. And never let anyone be sure of your intentions. My first move was simple. I stopped talking so much. In meetings, when asked for my thoughts, I'd give a brief, sometimes cryptic response. The data is still maturing, I'd say, or there are factors at play here I can't discuss yet. This wasn't a lie. It was strategic information control. The effect was fascinating. My silence created a vacuum. When I did speak, my words suddenly had immense weight. People started watching me, trying to figure me out. I was no longer an open book. I was a locked box, and everyone wanted the key. Next, I changed how I communicated success. While Marcus sent bombastic emails about every tiny win, I did the opposite. I started working on a major project off the books, telling only my direct boss. For months, it looked like I had given up. I let them underestimate me. During this time, I made my relationship with Marcus ambiguous. I was friendly, even complimenting his work in public. This confused everyone. He didn't know whether to treat me as a defeated rival or a potential ally, so he left me alone to work in the shadows. The climax came at the quarterly strategy review. Marcus gave his usual slick presentation. Then it was my turn. I stood up and said, I'm going to depart from the format today. For the past 3 months, my team has been incubating a new initiative. I'm here to present the results. For the next 20 minutes, I unveiled the secret project. I hadn't come with a theory. I had come with a victory. A fully operational pilot program that had already generated a massive new revenue stream. The impact was seismic. It was a knockout blow delivered from the shadows. My months of quietness were instantly reframed as strategic genius. I had let Marcus control a small, noisy stage while I was building a cathedral in silence. I got the promotion. Marcus was stunned because he never even saw me as a threat. He was so focused on the version of me, I allowed him to see that he was completely blind to my real ambition. This is the ultimate lesson. Don't fight for recognition. Create the conditions where it's given to you. Speak less than necessary. Let your actions build your reputation, but only reveal them for maximum impact. Become a mystery. Control what they see, and you'll control your reality. My journey from the overlooked nice guy to a position of real influence wasn't about becoming a bad person. I just stopped playing by a set of rules the rest of the world ignores. I learned that in the real world, being good isn't enough. You also have to be smart. And as Machiavelli teaches, that kind of wisdom is often found in uncomfortable truths. These 3 laws became my new operating system. First, it is safer to be feared than loved. This just means trading the hollow currency of being liked for the solid gold of being respected. Second, appear decisive, but adapt in private. I learned that leadership is a performance, and confidence is the most important part of the costume. And third, control perception. I stopped being an open book that was easy to exploit. I learned that you win by creating a reality that leaves other people trying to explain you. My life is unrecognizable from what it was. I have influence. I have agency. I have the power to shape my own career. This knowledge isn't a dark art. It's just the physics of how people work. The world is an arena, and it doesn't reward those who show up unarmed. These principles aren't about aggression. They're about protecting your value from a world that isn't always fair. You can choose to believe that kindness and hard work are enough. I lived that way for years, and it just made me bitter. Or you can accept the world as it is, not as you wish it were, and arm yourself with the tools to win. The choice is yours. Once you see the strings of power, you can never unsee them. You can either be the puppet, or you can be the one who pulls. If this story resonated with you, and you want to keep exploring the real mechanics of power, subscribe to the channel. We don't deal in comforting lies here. We deal in what works. Click the notification bell so you don't miss what's next.